But it's a first for Lyft, and I think that all the team is very, very happy about that. And the team will be all thrilled about Andy Reisinger's intervention. I had a chat before with him, and I expect something very, very interesting. But before I introduce him and the other speakers, let me tell you about this session briefly. This is a special session on sustainability, which was organized in cooperation between Lyft and an organization called What. I think we see, no, we don't see. What, spelled W-A-T-T, as in the measure of power. But of course, there is an interplay there with the W-H-A-T, watt, which is also part of the game. And in order to explain what is, and also to explain what's behind this and what's behind this session tonight, I would like to invite two people on stage, Bill Thompson, technology critic from the UK, and Philippa Martin-King. They will do a double act. I have no idea what they prepared. They spent the whole afternoon preparing. Let's see.
There will be no cabaret, actually. It's a very straightforward double act, and I think Philip's going to start off.
Yes, I'm here to talk about the banner of What and why What might have something to do with sustainable development and climate change. You have the title Electrifying Difference to Climate Change. Why electricity? Electricity, boring thing really, technical, comes out of a plug in the wall. But why is electricity important to us? What are you all using today here in the room? Electricity. So how does that relate to us as individuals?
It's easy, actually. Human beings, that's all of us here, I assume most of us are from the planet Earth, have had a massive impact on the Earth in the last few thousand years. And we've been throwing carbon dioxide into the atmosphere with very little concern for the consequences. And as a result, we're watching weather patterns change, we're watching significant impact on the way that we human beings operate on the Earth. We're seeing changes in coastlines, we're seeing changes in the weather, all sorts of consequences. In fact, many geologists are now arguing that we've left the Holocene era and we've entered the Anthropocene era, of a new era of geological time characterized by the impact of human beings on the environment that will be laid down in the record and be observable by people in thousands and millions of years' time. But if you're like me, then you don't live so much in a carbon economy as in a voltage economy. What really counts is not so much the carbon load as the availability of voltage differences. For our laptops, for our MP3 players, for our mobile phones, for our BlackBerries, for all of the other devices that everyone in this room relies on every moment of the day. So electricity use is a big part of the problem. A lot of that electricity is generated from fossil fuels, so there's a direct link between our usage of electricity, sustainable development, and the carbon economy.
And so I'll take over. Electricity, how do we deal with it? There's a lot of legislation coming out, but legislation isn't all of it. There is a certain amount of standardization, not to be confused with legislation. Legislation is something that governments have to deal with. Standardization is something that organizations like the IEC, who support What, are dealing with. Now, standardization really means interoperability, making your life easier so that things can work together. You land in Geneva Airport, you've come from the UK, like Bill Thompson did today, and he expects the moment he gets into Geneva Airport, he can get his computer out and he can talk to me off his computer. He can use his mobile phone. This is all standardized technology, nothing to do with legislation or governments. But standards, if we had anything to do with it, of course, we'd all be using the same plugs, wouldn't we? That's not quite standardized yet.
The thing is that the ICT systems we are all using were largely developed and designed in a time before we were aware of these issues. That they use electricity with massive profligacy. They just don't care about their consumption. We have step-down transformers that don't work very well. We have different voltages required by different circuit boards in the same computer. We have standby systems that don't actually save much on energy. We have a whole load of issues to deal with in the IT community that we're only just starting to think about seriously. Some manufacturers are doing good work. IBM, Intel, Google are all making serious efforts to get into what they call green computing. but it's still not enough. And I look around at all the computers here, and I wonder just how much power we're currently consuming. If everyone in this room was using an XO1 laptop, like the ones that were outside earlier, they'd have gone to sleep while you weren't typing, they'd have shut down their processors, they wouldn't be using nearly as much power. So we are already part of the problem. The question is whether we can be part of the solution.
That's perhaps where the individual comes into it, and where what might have an importance, and certainly should have an importance for you as an individual. We've talked about standardization made for organizations. We've talked about legislation made for governments, or governments legislate, tell us what to do. Most of us are free-minded people. We don't like being told what to do. But if we have an opportunity to be able to say to others what we think we should do, or how we think other people should act, or how we act at home, we might actually not only influence our peers, but actually feel a lot better and start practicing a little of what we preach. So, What is a site in which the individual has a say. Now, an individual, I believe, has a role to play in the world because some great individuals have moved the world and created great projects which other people have adopted and followed on. If you look at whatwhat.com, as we said, a play on what, the measure of power as a what, and which one you're choosing what. Whatwhat.com, you can enroll as a whatwatter, and you can put your point of view there, and the likelihood is that somebody in the world who's a standardization person, somebody from a standardization organization, perhaps a government, or somebody who has the legislative role to play, might take up something you've put there, and certainly you can manage to talk to people across the world using what, and perhaps put out some good practice that other people might have heard about but not adopted.
So what's here, it's there, you can see the website. I helped with the some of the initial ideas. I'm a contributor, and I'm really proud to be playing a part. But it is very much a start. And I think we all need to be more involved. We need to put pressure on the people who manufacture our favorite laptops so that they're energy efficient as well as being just environmentally defensible. We need to ask our ISPs what they're doing to minimize their carbon loading. We need to turn off the machines. We need to unplug the transformers. We need to take all of those small steps in our personal use of electricity so we can then have something approaching the moral high ground when it comes to asking the politicians for the much bigger changes which we're going to need in the global economy. So that's what we can do, but this generation has to look to the future too.
And the future is not in us. In 2030, will most of us be retired and on the way out?
Or dead.
Our children, or dead. Our children will be here to take over our children's children. So tomorrow's future is going to be dealt with by youth. And so we've launched Care4it, but we'll come back to that a little bit later.
Thank you.
Thank you.